you ever wondered what it's like to be a fighter pilot? Maybe you're trying to figure out how to become one. Well, the thing you gotta know is rule number one. And well, I'm gonna tell you what rule number one, but is you gotta stick with me on Flywire to find out. Hi, I'm Scott Perdue, and today on Flywire, I'm going to talk about becoming a fighter pilot, and I'm going to let you in on the secret that fighter pilots know, or at least most of them. And that's rule number one. This is actually a complex topic, being a fighter pilot, and I can't cover every detail in a short YouTube video. But I assure you, there's lots of stuff out there on YouTube and the internet, some of it good, some of it outdated, and some of it just BS. Okay, and mostly general culture of what a fighter pilot is BS anyway. My actual path may seem outdated, as you can see I'm an old dude, but a lot of it though is still relevant. And what I want to talk about is what it takes, the mindset, the approach, the motivation to be a fighter pilot, what it takes to succeed. That stuff is timeless. Doesn't matter what the current admission criteria is. To begin with, in my heretical opinion, you don't have to fly fighters to be a fighter pilot. You can fly bombers, transport airplanes, biz jets, and even GA airplanes. Being a successful fighter pilot is more of a mindset than a job title. You might think I'm full of it, and on occasion you're right. But I've known guys who flying fighters that were not fighter pilots, and I've known guys flying Cubs that qualified, in my opinion. So hear me out. Let's start with my career path as an enlisted Marine. You see, way back when Christ was a corporal, relatively speaking, you needed at least a bachelor's degree to get a commission, and you need a commission to be an officer, and you need to be an officer to be a pilot. My dad was a Marine pilot in World War II, one of the last flying sergeants, and he was a technical sergeant, ended the war, and he ended the war surplus to needs. At the tail end of World War II, if you're an enlisted pilot, frankly, you didn't have much of a future, being a pilot that is. And after World War II, virtually all the services made it a requirement for a pilot to be an officer. When I graduated high school, college was not an easy option for me. So I went and enlisted. I knew I wanted to fly, and I took classes to prepare me for college. High school didn't do a huge job of that. Maybe I partied too much. I took ground school to learn to become a pilot, and I ended up doing that twice. In those days, there was an aero club on base at most Air Force bases, some Marine bases, and some Army bases. And while I was a Marine stationed at Parris Island, I started my pilot training at Hunter Army Airfield in Savannah, Georgia. It was a bit of a drive from Parris Island, but hey, you gotta find a way. That's the bottom line. Being an enlisted Marine gave me a chance to get my feet on the ground and figure out a path that worked for me. I knew I had to do college, so I got out of active duty, joined the reserves, and I moved back to Texas. I got the first of several jobs and started taking classes and working because the GI Bill back then didn't go very far. I went to UT in Austin and first studied aerospace engineering. And I'll admit to you that it was a struggle. There's some hard classes and not much support for a student that's 4 years older than average. I didn't fit in real well. I was alone in a sea of young kids, if you imagine that. I went through the Marines PLC program and I was ready for a commission when I graduated, but I had a pilot slot, so I figured, hey man, I'm all set. I was a Marine after all. Two things happened to me late in my junior year. One, I realized that I was going to need at least another year of classes to graduate in aerospace engineering. You know, I knew I didn't want to design airplanes, I just wanted to fly them, but I'd figured aerospace engineering was a way to really get to know airplanes. At the same time, I learned that the Marines had changed their mind and wanted me to be a grunt officer instead of a pilot. Well, you know, I tried that as an enlisted man, and what I wanted to do was fly fighters. Infantry is an honorable profession, and I'm proud of my short time with a rifle, but I wanted to fly, so forget the Marines. I went to the Navy. They accepted me as a pilot. I also went to the Air Force, and they accepted me too, but they told me I had a problem. Oh yeah? The problem was I was getting old. If I stuck with aerospace engineering, I was going to be too old to fly when I graduated, and they would not give me an age waiver. By this time, I was married with a kid, and the prospect of 6 months at sea at a time was not a big plus to my life. So I forgot the Navy. Settling on the Air Force, I had to fix my problem. They really didn't care what my degree was, just that I had one. I sat down with a catalog and I figured out the degree that I could get with all the courses I had already taken. So I changed my major and I went all in on the Air Force. I had to go through Officers Training School, OTS, but I had my pilot slot. I already had a pilot's license, and I'm convinced that it was a plus when my package was scored. A family friend, Bob Lehman, was a Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force. Besides being a reference for me to get in the Air Force, he told me about the Euro-NATO Joint Jet Pilot Training Program at Shepherd Air Force Base. And my OTS class was assigned 2 slots, so I competed. The NJET program produced fighter pilots, or you washed out. Hey, it's a gamble. It's what flying's all about, right? Plus, you got to fly almost another 100 hours in regular UPT, so count me in. That's where I hit it. I went through the NJET program, and then I ended up flying F-4s and F-15Es. Eventually, I retired from the Air Force, and then I went on to fly for the airlines. And I wanted to relay my path to you, not because I think I'm special. The path was hard. It was strewn with obstacles that others threw at me and some that I put in my own path. And you are too. It's going to be happening to you too, just about everybody. It can be discouraging. Sometimes you feel like you're all alone and the task is impossible. Everyone's path is a little different, but in a way the same. It's all hard. What is common, I think, is the desire to fly. In order to be successful at achieving that goal, the first thing, the most important thing you need is to have a whole lot of want to. And that is completely up to you. As I said, everyone's path is different. You may think they have it easy, but everyone has problems. The trick is to listen and learn from others and keep your eyes focused on the goal. You gotta want it. I'll tell you right now that a solid year of pilot training is just about the hardest sustained thing you're ever gonna have to do. You have to accept the fact that you may not end up flying fighters. The first thing you have to do is graduate. But if you've given it your all, worked as hard as you can, and done your best, then you will fly. If you're lucky, you'll drop fighters. No excuses, do the work. After all of this, you're probably wondering what the heck I mean about being a fighter pilot doesn't mean having a job title, having the job title. The bedrock of being a good fighter pilot is the mindset. You work hard, you learn as much as you can, you be prepared for everything you can figure out, and you don't drop excuses when you fall short. You just get back up, get after it again, you do the work. You notice your mistakes, you log them, and you try hard not to commit the same mistake twice. You listen to others, you do the best you can. You never have the perfect sortie. You never fly without making a mistake. So to get better, the first thing you have to do is admit the mistake when you make it. Then figure out what you have to do to get better and not make the same mistake again. This idea works in real life as well as flying. Kind of makes flying a metaphor for life, doesn't it? Did I say no excuses? If you screwed something up, your perception, your understanding of the procedure or the topic was wrong, don't tell me why you thought you were right, because you ended up being wrong. So get your head around that concept. You can fly whatever airplane you end up being assigned with that way. Okay, flying is better than driving any day of the week. Doesn't matter what it is. Strive for perfection. You are human, so give yourself permission to fall short, but not permission to blow off the mistake. Get better at crosswinds, approaches, radio calls, studying numbers, the books, you name it. Focus on your weakness. We all have them. Get better and don't be a tool. Being told you made a mistake is hard to take. Get over it. Learn from it. It's only personal if you allow it to be. Choose to succeed. The reason the fighter pilot mindset has come to exist is because more than any other job, a screw up will probably mean mission failure. But it also likely means that your life is forfeit. It's on the line. Flying an instrument approach or a VFR pattern at Cessna 150 may pale by comparison, but you know what? It is the same thing. Your life is on the line and others too. You owe it to yourself to work at being the best you can be. Take it one day at a time, one task at a time, but always keep your eyes focused on the goal. Know that with enough want to, you can overcome just about anything. You gotta want it. So that's my nickel on the grass on how to start being a fighter pilot. I told you it's complicated. I told you a degree is required. Get one. You need a commission and you need to compete for a pilot slot. Figure it out. Where are you gonna go? There are others on the web and on YouTube that give you a better, more up-to-date, blow-by-blow guidance than I can offer, so I'm not going to try in this video. But a few of these folks are really going to tell you how you have to organize your mind to be a success. It's hard, and you got to want it. You got to do the work. There was a motto that was common when I was a newbie. Fight to fly, fly to fight, and fight to win. For someone that wants to be a pilot, maybe a fighter pilot, this is a more appropriate, personalized motto than tax, fly, fight, and win back in the day. Internalize it, live it, be the ball, Danny. Frankly, it's the same thing as C.W. Lemoyne says, make them tell you no, do the work. Now we get to the secret. I'm going to tell you what the fighter pilot rule number 1 is. Are you ready? You got to listen. Rule number 1 is to pull your head out of your ass. No shit. What it means is that you are your own worst enemy, and any problem you encounter is probably largely your fault. To overcome whatever problem it is, you have to fix that defensive impulse inside of you first. That's the secret. I don't expect you to really understand it yet. Think about it, but always remember rule number 1, pull your head out of your ass. Okay, now that I've pissed off YouTube and I've cussed, we have the fighter pilot mindset defined. We can begin to talk about learning some of that cool stuff about flying fighters. So stick with me on Flywire as I start a new series. I think I'm going to call it Fighter Pilots Are Made, Not Born. Okay? I hope you liked the video. If so, like and subscribe. It would help me out. It looks like this here. And if you really like it, share it with folks you know, because it might help them on their path. I'd like to thank my Patreon supporters here. Without these guys, it would be harder to do these videos. I'm going to leave a link below if you'd like to support the Patreon channel, the Flywire Patreon channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Flywire.